I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will let it pass over me and through me. And when it has passed, I will return to my inner eye to see the path. Where it has gone, there it will be nothing. Only I will remain.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Ange.
We're Nerdazons. I've been talking about this movie for a very long time.
Yes.
So much so that I was even talking about it back when I was on Luke's podcast.
Save file, which was called Stuck in the Middle Tooth with You, because we were talking about how Tom Cruise has a middle tooth. So you should...
It's been ages for this film to finally come out.
So, sorry, I actually read the books. This was one of the very first books I read for fun.
As a kid?
As a kid.
That was Harry Potter for me.
See, I could never get into Harry Potter.
I think it's because I was I'm a bit younger than you, so I was the exact same age as the books and stuff when it came out, so I felt like I related a bit more.
I don't know. I was just getting into my sci-fi phase, and I'd watched the original quite a few times. And to know that this was going to be a remake, and to know that it was going to be directed by, I'm probably going to butcher it, Denis Villeneuve, which, he does an amazing job. Blade Runner, which we did.
Yeah, so good. That was,
And the moment that I saw the cast for the remake, I was like, oh, yeah. So we'll get straight into it. The synopsis of the 1984, the year is 10191. A spice called melange is the most valuable substance known to the universe. The only source is in the desert planet Arrakis. A royal decree awards Arrakis to Duke Leto Atreides and outs his bitter enemies. A duke's son leads desert warriors against the galactic emperor and his father's evil nemesis to free the desert world from the emperor's rule. And the 2021 says, feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction novel about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable assets and the most vital element in the galaxy.
So I have to admit, I know you love this film, but I knew absolutely nothing about it, had no interest to watch it, didn't even know it existed. So I went into both of these not knowing what to expect.
So Paul Atreides is a brilliant and gifted young man born into his great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure that the future of his family and his people. As a malevolent force explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. Going to the original, I loved the opening scene of the dry desert and then the big Dune written up. I also liked the fact that it shows you that you're going inside the book. So I liked that idea.
I liked the opening, how it was like cartoons and stuff. And it was like very storytelling, which I liked that element about.
And yes, I liked that they explained the history of Dune beforehand, because it is a very, very complex story. I didn't realize that there's actually 15 books in this series.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be, from what I was told, it's supposed to be panned across thousands of years or something.
Yes, it does.
But if we're on story, when I watched the first one, I thought, oh wow, this is actually a pretty interesting story. It was actually I had more questions at the end when I finished it, and I realized it left me irritable a bit, because there was just so much that I didn't know, I didn't have answers to. And the story, I think for me, when I finished it, I sat back and had a thought, and I realized I would probably have to watch it a good 3 or 4 times to really figure out what was happening. And then I watched the remake only yesterday, and the whole way through I was like, that's why they do this, or oh my god, that makes so much more sense. And there was a lot of things in the original story that they just expected you to know, compared to the remake. They really explained it for the viewer, but not in a dumbed down way. It's as Paul was learning it through the book, we were learning it, and it made so much more sense. And it just they didn't expect the viewer to have to know based off of the book, it made so much more sense on the second one, because I was just like, oh, I understand now. I don't need to go back and watch the original.
And that's what I was telling my friends, is that if you're going to watch the new Dune, I highly recommend watching the original first, just so you understand that you have the basic understanding of what the story's about. And it kind of explains it. Whereas I know that this one is only a part one, and that part two is going to explain more. I actually like that they broke it down to half movies.
I agree.
Because they are so long and that they are so complex.
But it didn't even feel long when I watched the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something my twin, when he went and saw it, he didn't even notice it was that long. Whereas the first one, I actually took 2 sittings to finish that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, there was a decent gap in between both sittings when I watched it. And it just left so many questions. As someone who didn't know anything about it, I would say the same thing that Steph said. Watch the original, because there's so much jam-packed in that film, in the story that they've tried to condense. It'll go over your head, and then when you watch the next one, it's like you've discovered it for the first time. It still feels like you're watching this story without fully knowing what's happening, and it just makes so much more sense.
And while I was researching this, because I'd only ever read the first book, because it took me so long to read, and now I'm listening to it, and I love the fact that when I'm listening to it on Audible, yes, it's being narrated, but there's also scenes where it's set up like an audio drama, and it blows my mind about, wow, this world, because I haven't read this book in such a long time. And I said, oh, I'm going to read all of the Terry Pratchett Discworld. I'm like, no, now I'm going to go on the Dune books.
I actually have sidetrack here, as we do. I was telling my godfather, because he loves Terry Pratchett as well, and I was telling him how my aim is to try and read as much as I can in the new year. Obviously, you and I have picked quite a few books this year to also read, and I downloaded my first one, which is the one it's one of his favorites, and he's telling me to read that one first. I downloaded the Audible Unseen Academicals. It's like soccer, but in the Magic University.
Sweet.
And so I downloaded the Audible, and then when I saw him at Christmas, he's like, I'm giving you the book and I'm encouraging you to read. And then what did he get me for Christmas? He got me a book, and I'm like, I listened to Audible, get me an Audible account. So I have a few books now. I'm probably going to have this book now for like a year.
Well, I mean, you haven't even read Stardust after I gave that to you as well.
I listened to it.
I know, but you need to read it. It's so beautiful.
I've still got it. I'll keep it and I'll read it one day.
I was trying to find this movie, and I was on Amazon, and it brought up, I typed in Dune, and it brings up Kids of Dune, and it's all about Paul Atreides' son, Paul Atreides Jr. And it's actually, Paul Atreides Jr. is played by James McAvoy.
No.
Yeah, and Susan Sarandon's in the series as well. I was I think I'm going to have to watch that.
I didn't even know that existed.
The third remake of Dune, because there was one in 2000. Anyway, I've been going on about this movie for such a long time. I saw it for the first time with my brother. My brother was just like, I really want to see 007. I'm like, come see this with me. 5 minutes into it, he was sound asleep.
It's crazy.
I know, but I ended up watching it twice at the movies. I loved this movie so much. The remake was just so beautiful.
It was so beautifully shot.
So the first note I wrote for the 1984 one was, oh my God, that's right, Stinger's in the movie. And Carl McLachlan. Oh wait, Patrick Stewart too.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the cast to come out. Even Paul Atreides, I know him more when he's older. I've forgotten what he's in, but yeah, I just remembered his face, and I'm like, oh, it's him. I've never seen him with a young face before.
I know, he's a little baby. So the first sighting of the worm, first of all, I'm going to go back and forth to the book as well. I know you haven't read it, but I'm almost finished it, and I'm relating on that as well. So the first worm, okay, first of all, in the book, it's really important that Duke puts the lives of the miners over the, so when they're looking at the spice and
Yep.
they've got the miners there, and the Duke ends up saving everybody. That's
Yep.
so important in the books. He's putting his crew, his humanity before spice.
And he's demonstrating like true leadership, that his people are the important things, not the resources on the planet.
Exactly. And I think 2021 did a brilliant job of this. They did it.
It showed better, I think, in the 84 version.
Really?
I feel like only because I think it was like explicitly said by the old man that was just taking them. Like you can see he's sitting there and he's observing, and his thoughts are, oh, maybe this guy really does care about us. Like he actually says that, so it makes you think that. And that's what I thought. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a true king. That's showing that he cares about his people, not the resources. Whereas in the other one, it just shows the female, I've forgotten her name, but it just shows her looking at him and observing.
Yes.
No, it was the biologist, the scientist that was showing them out. Yeah, like it doesn't actually show, like she doesn't actually say that sort of thing, so you don't think it. It's not as implied.
We're going into storyline a bit, but I'm also incorporating characters in one. I have to say the relationship between Duncan and Paul in 2021 is so much better.
So I didn't know this. Sorry to sidestep you there.
No, that's okay.
I didn't know this until today, but my partner said that Patrick Stewart's character is like two morphed into one, because I kept saying to him when we were watching it, I'm like, who is Duncan? Like, and he's like, he's the one that dies and sacrifices himself in the original. I'm like, I don't remember Duncan in the original. I remember Patrick Stewart, like his advisor, and then the guy that was in charge of security. I don't remember this Duncan character. And then I think he was saying that like Patrick Stewart's character was like a morph of the two. Because I the whole time I was watching Days in the Mom, I'm like, where is his character in the original?
Oh, Richard Jordan actually played Duncan Idaho. So I felt like the relationship
there was the Duncan
with them, was so much better, because he was like his mentor, his father when his father wasn't around.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a great relationship. When he came off the plane and he's like, hey, you put on muscle. Have I? No, you haven't.
No, I know. What a troll.
And also, we'll start with the Atreides first. I have to say, the relationship between Paul and his father was so much better in the remake. I feel like characters themselves were so much tighter in the original.
They were deeper too.
Yes.
Like a deeper
even
portrayal.
When the Duke was talking to Paul, Jurgen Ponchau was Duke Leo Atreides in the original. I just felt like the dad was very standoffish, and just like he cared about everybody, but he didn't really care about his son as much. He didn't show it. Whereas the scene, Oscar Isaacs and Timothée Chalamet are talking, and he's like, I just want you to be happy. You'll find your own way of becoming the Duke.
Yeah.
You'll find it. You'll find it yourself. And I thought that was so much better as well. So Patrick Stewart played Gurney, where Gurney in the remake was done by Josh Brolin. And even like
such a different character to True Grit.
Yes,
crazy,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And he's obviously a lot older now as well. The way that Gurney was even fighting with Paul was so much better as well. Like he wasn't there to be his friend. He was there to be his teacher.
And it demonstrated the tension. So I know we're kind of talking characters and storyline in one, but like that was a big thing about the storyline in the remake. It took out the whole beginning with the Emperor. So you knew that the whole plot was there. You knew that the weird alien looking thing, I don't ask me what race they were, I forgot. You knew that the witches, they were all conspiring to send the House Atreides to Arrakis. So you knew that was going to happen, whereas in the remake they took that out, and in the remake it really built a political tension without you having to know. So that's what was so good about this one, is it put you in the story. So you were exactly like Paul, you had no idea what was happening, and you discovered it as he discovered it. So you could feel there was a political tension, but you didn't know why, because you didn't know you were set up, because you were just told you have to go to Arrakis. Like you didn't know the full story of it. And I like that they took that scene out. to really set the mood and the atmosphere of a film.
Absolutely. But I'm also going to say one of the best scenes to me was when the Reverend Mother and that scene where she's like, I've got a stick to your neck
Yeah.
and take your finger out. And when Jessica was saying, Paul, you need to do this, you could see she just wanted to be a mother and give her son a hug, but she couldn't because the Reverend Mother was just there and you can't show emotions. I thought that scene was so much better because he was saying it's hot like fire, as that's how he describes it in the book. And she was, oh my gosh, I have to say, Charlotte Rampling, I love her so much. I think she is such an amazing actress. And I thought she did such a great job.
Yeah, I think that scene, it was interesting to me in comparison to the original. The original was very visual and vocal in trying to let you understand. So it was all in Paul's head, like quite a lot throughout that film. It was his thoughts
yes,
in the
and
original.
that's what I hated.
And so it would be his thoughts on what he's saying, and he's describing the pain. It's as if you're like reading an audiobook, to be honest. And then I think in the original, it had a few flickers of like shots of like pain that he's going through. Whereas in this one, like it's crazy how this entire film is built on mood, atmosphere, and tension. Like the tension between the two actors just in that room and how they acted really built the fear and pain in his mind.
And what did you think about Baron Vladimir, played by Kenneth McGillan, and the other one played by Stellan Skarsgård?
Okay, so I'm a bit half and half with this one.
Same.
Okay,
I liked both of them.
Love in the original. I loved there was an animation insanity to him. It was so like brightly insane. The way he acted, the prosthetics, the pus on his face, like all of that was just so. Yeah, the only way I can describe it is it's colorfully insane, and that's what you would think of. Yes, yeah, and I kind of like that. And even with the three sons that he had, or well, in the other one of them's a nephew in the remake. I'm not sure, but anyway, the three main.
No, so I will let you know that Freyd Ruther, played by Sting, he's not in the 2021.
He was completely created just for the sake of him being in the film. So, okay, well, anyway, those three, they were also three very different ones. So Pieter, I don't know if you know this because he's the only character that I really noticed straight away, but that's Brad Dourif. That is Chucky. He's the voice of Chucky.
No.
Yeah. So he, in the very first Chucky, you'll even see him before he goes into the doll. So, and he's the only one who's played Chucky. Yeah, so that's Chucky. He was insane, almost on like a Hellraiser vibe I got. Like it's like even the way he spoke about Lady Jessica, I thought you probably just want to like flail her skin, and I feel creeped out.
Well, actually, Lady Jessica and Baron are actually cousins.
Ew, no way.
Because the Harkonnens are so powerful that they wanted to get with them.
Ew.
So yeah, they're actually like cousins in.
Yeah, but even if you go past Pieter, then you had the other one. I think it's Roman or something. And he was just like an animal, like a brute. So you had like Sting's character, you had a crazy person, and then a brute, and then you had this crazy, insane like Baron that managed them all, and it just seems so much more, like animated compared to the other one. But in saying that, going back to Stellan Skarsgård, he was a very cold, disconnected, calculative person, and it was a really different vibe. It was like almost inhuman, like the Borg. That was the type of vibe I got from them in the second one. But I think I prefer the original.
Because the Baron was actually, back in his day, he was skinny like Sting, but the witch actually put a curse on him. So that's why he's so grotesque. In the original, you could almost see that he was like buckled up and like flying around.
Yeah, I got so creeped out when like I didn't realize it was Sting until afterwards, and I just because to me when he came out, I've seen so much sci-fi, my mind immediately went to, oh my god, is that guy like meant to be the new body of the Baron? Like it just looked like he was getting, he was building the perfect specimen for him to be transferred into. That the way he looked at him when he's
Almost like
he's
Rocky Horror.
perfect. He's like, that's what I thought when I was watching. I didn't realize it was like a son, because I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's body is obviously mangled. That's why he floats around, and he's just built himself a replacement. That's why he looked creepily at him when he came out and started posing. I was just like, oh, this is weird.
But like Stellan Skarsgård was, I think they both did a really good job. Where one was over the top and very campy and just, over acted, whereas I think Stellan did a very good job of portraying creepy, just I'm going to keep quiet.
It's very much like if you look at Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger, it's the same sort of concept. You have a dark Heath Ledger, like Stellan Skarsgård, and then you have a colourful comic character, which was like Jack Nicholson. It's the same sort of concept with these two, and I think they were both done really well. I can't say which is better. I think I like the original better, but it's just really hard to say because they were done so differently.
Okay, so what do you think of Paul Atreides by Timothée Chalamet, and the other one was done by Kyle MacLachlan?
I actually think Timothée Chalamet did this one so much better. The acting in the original was just it was so
hated all the
and it was
whispering.
so fake.
I hated all the whispering.
The mind stuff, yeah.
That actually started to annoy me. I have seen this movie a few times now, throughout many years. I mean, there's been many years between the watches, but I actually liked Paul in the original. I thought he was great, but obviously it's been done better because I don't think they had much of a budget. And I wrote down in my notes that it felt like it was very play, like it was very stage play set up.
It was very overacted. You know, even the looks on his faces and things, it was so hard to take him seriously. I couldn't take him seriously. It just was really overacted.
Oscar Isaac, I'm going to say he is incredible. And even
he was great.
Even his death scene.
Why was he naked? It was the first thing I said to my partner. I'm like, why did he need to be naked at the dining room table? What was the point of that?
Because that was torture. You don't want to you want to give them that last little bit of embarrassment, I guess. That last little bit of humanity. I'm going to take your clothes away. I don't
think it would have fazed him because he couldn't move anyway.
I know, but then when he's like, remember the tooth. The tooth.
That was the biggest point, I have to say, that made sense. Like, to demonstrate how the new one made you understand better, because in the first one it was just like, you're going to put this in, whatever, whatnot. I had no idea what the tooth would do. But in the other one, just by him saying this tooth is going to release a poisonous gas, and I'm like, oh, I know what's coming. I understand what you're doing. Just by adding that simple sentence, as the viewer, you were able to follow the storyline. There were so many points in the original that I just got so lost because they didn't explain it. And that was the one scene that I was like, oh, this is the perfect example I need to write down as to why the second one explained so much better.
There's so many characters to go through. I will just say Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, amazing. And even Zendaya, I didn't give a spoiler last time when I said Zendaya's not in it very much. I remember you saying, oh, it's a spoiler. No, it's not. She only had
even in the original film, that character, Chani, wasn't even really there.
I thought, and even the eyes, blue eyes, were so much better in the remake as well.
Yep. Yeah, naturally, because we got more, you can have contacts, and then you can also,
CGI
blend the sclera of your eye, so it makes it better.
Even like Javier Bardem, I adore him. I think the whole thing was just so beautiful, this movie.
Yeah.
And this is why I was telling you, go see it at the cinema.
I wanted to.
You can't do this movie.
Yeah. And the director
does not do it justice.
I mean, it definitely did. Like, I certainly noticed some things. Like, there was one scene at the very beginning before they leave Caledon, and it just showed you beautiful, like, clear water, and you just see the shadow of the ship coming up through the water, the outline of it, and I just thought, that's so gorgeous. And I was reading a review, and this person summed it up so perfectly. This director knows how to shoot something so cinematically beautiful without having to do nothing but fight scenes and things blowing up. And it just makes it show you how, like, these worlds look so real.
I know.
And it's all fake, you know, like all the shot
You
for
don't
shot
realize
just look
that
beautiful.
it doesn't come into your mind that it's fake.
Yeah, it's like I mean, obviously parts of it were probably shot on location, but it just shows you how the perfect mix of location, CGI, like effects, costumes,
Perfect
sets,
cast. I think this one, the 2021,
perfect
had a
combination.
perfect cast. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it was
And
absolutely done perfectly.
the sandworms, all I could think of was that looks like an asshole the whole
But that's
time.
like, even in the original though, they look
These look like
weird.
buttholes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they don't look terrifying to me at all. Also, something that I noticed different in the story, and I don't know if, again, I think the story and screenplay, the way it all flowed in the original is what lets it down, because it was really, really tough to follow, and there were so many things that went over my head. But I didn't know that the Fremen can ride the worms. I thought it was only until Paul turned up, because then in the remake, before the like scientist, I think she's a biology scientist, before she died, she was
Dr. Leah
about
Kynes?
to. Pardon?
Dr. Kynes?
Yeah, so before she died, she had the hooks ready and she was going to go and jump on the worm. And I thought, and then even at the end when he's like, "Oh, that's your secret weapon. You can ride the worms." I thought they didn't do it until he came in. But maybe that's something that was not translated in the original film well, but it definitely came across well in this, and it made so much more sense to me. And I'm like, that's how they survived out there, because they've learned how to like tame them.
Even like the sand, and you could see like the spice and stuff, even that
Yeah.
was that was
Clearer.
so beautiful. And the hazmat suits were so much better as well.
Yeah.
And I have to say, when they were fighting and they had their armor up, I thought, oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah, it was
So
so blocky. It looked like Tron or like the original Minecraft or something.
yeah, I know. I was like, this is
The
so
shields
funny.
was so bad. Like, that was the point, I think, when I started the original, and I thought, oh my God, I can't take this seriously when when I started it. But then the story got really interesting, but it also, it's the one thing that I've discovered about this is the creator of the book literally built worlds and worlds into this story, and that is why it's so dense. Like, it's not just, oh, go to this one planet for spice. They then built he then built like planets upon planets outside of that, a massive political warfare in it. There's actual fighting, and it's just like, no wonder it's such a hard book to read. Like, everyone like you used to tell me it's so hard to read, and I can see why.
It is a bit dry, but listening to it, because I'm only just getting into audiobooks. I prefer reading. This one, it's bigger than Game of Thrones. It's a huge book. That's why I'm like, I'm gonna just listen, and that way, I can do my housework or whatever and listen to it. And I'm finding out so many more things after listening to it and then watching the movies again. I'm picking up even more about the stories, and I forgot how amazing these books are, this series. I just hope that they continue to make the movies.
Yeah, that was, again, when I was reading like different reviews on the remake, and that was a point that they made. It's like, I hope, like, things only get remade because of the viewers, and if they are prepared to go and pay to see it. Obviously it came out at the wrong time, and it's like, I hope it continues, because I definitely want to see the second one. Like, I actually really enjoyed that second film.
That makes me so happy that you enjoyed Dune.
I did. I really, really liked it. Like I said, like, it was the first one, the story interested me, but at the end, I had so many questions. I feel like as soon as he got to, again, we might be hitting spoiler territory here, because it's going to be in the second
but
of the film. We did
too
warn
bad.
in the last episode. We did.
Yes.
But when he joined the Fremen, that whole second half of that film, I feel, just went so quick. And
Yes.
it just reminded me of like a lot of like when anime films series try to beat the manga that it's written from, they just do it so quickly and they lose so much of the story. And I think that's where I got lost, because that's where the meat of the story is. They concentrated so much on the first half of that film, getting him out there. They could have reduced that and extended the second half of the film to provide more of that information that I feel I lost.
Do it in 2 movies.
Which is exactly what this one's going to do.
Yes, which
I
is,
always thought
I
it was
think
they were going to do it in a trilogy, but I was wrong.
it's more than a trilogy.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I'm really happy that you liked this. And in my set costumes, prosthetics and stuff, I just put down 1984. Oh wow, the eyebrows.
Oh, I do have a note though also on like props. 1984. What the hell was that gag? When they took, I thought, oh yeah, it just looked like a black surgical mask or like duct tape over the top of it. But then when they pulled it out and this big long piece of rubber came out of her mouth, I'm like, why is that in there? Like in the new one, it was just like a piece of tape. But I'm just like, that just seems so like wrong. That is what the gag piece you chose.
I know. And then I put, okay, the Navigator, which is the one at the beginning of the 1984, where they come in and they tell the Harkonnens, too bad you're out. It's now Atreides. And I just wrote, he looks like a Dalek, like the inside of a Dalek. And
the big like worm thingy in the tank.
And then also, did you notice that there was only one guy mopping the floor and it didn't seem to be doing anything about the grossness?
No, I didn't notice that.
And the armor was so 80s. And I also put down in the soundtrack, which we'll get to at the very end, I put, even in the 80s, you still can't get away from those bagpipes.
In the remake?
In the original, yeah, when they're doing the bagpipes, I was like, oh my god.
No, it was in the remake as well.
Was it?
When they got off the ship, when they landed at Arrakis,
yeah,
they had... The one thing I did really like about the remake was there was an insane blend of cultures, and I really, really loved that. Like it wasn't so
whitewashed.
No, like the Scottish bagpipes came out, and then when you saw her walking, she was in like a scarf sort of skirt mix with beads and stuff, but then her shoes were like, they look like the type of sandal shoes that they wear with like kimonos, like geishas and samurais used to wear with their outfit. And I'm like, what a blend. And then if you looked at the set design, you had like, it almost looked like Egyptian walls, but then there was like Japanese koi on the side. It was just such a mix, and I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, this is what you picture futuristic worlds to be, a beautiful blend, like Blade Runner sort of did that a bit as well.
Ugh, I hated both of those. I was not a fan.
I love these films. We shall never speak of that again, because that will be an argument.
And when they were shooting in the desert, when they were using their guns, it just sounded like they were like pew pew pew. And
I know, I laughed so hard. I'm like, okay, how can I take this seriously?
It was, you can't really take the 1984 one seriously. It's just, I think it's there to set you up for the 2021.
It definitely helps give the foundation of that. Like I said, it's an insane like world that was built and created, and it really helped me understand so much more when we came into the next one, especially like the political side of it. And I think again, it's because of the structure that they did the first film. I was so lost. I'm like, what is happening? Like, it automatically started with the Emperor and all that business, whereas they took that out and they just left the tension, and I thought that was a lot better. But there's one scene in the original that also, there's so many scenes in the original that made me laugh. But when he's with the Fremen, again, if you watch the full original film, you would have seen it. This will be a spoiler in the next one, but you had the like chief guy when they were at the party. And you had Paul Atreides' face on one side, and then he comes behind him and he whispers in his ear and he's like, so do you want to see the water of life, like in his ear? And Paul's face is just like, he's moving his face like sort of thing, and then he looks back at him, and I'm like, this is a bit of a moment between you two all over water.
And speaking of that, the voice, how much better was the voice in... I sound like I'm shitting all over the 1984. I'm not. I liked
like
it.
The command
I will watch
voice?
it again. Yes, where it
So
was
much
like
better.
so much better.
Like it
Give
was
me the
over
glass. And
like it was over the top, but it made you realize there is a significant difference between a normal voice and like a commanding voice.
And also, this is going to be a spoiler. I don't care, but I can't, like Duncan, Idaho. They've got a part where you can reanimate people. So they're talking about like
Oh,
Duncan
I didn't
coming back.
know that.
Yeah. So
Not in the original, so that is a
no,
spoiler.
oops. So that'd be good because I thought Jason Momoa was so good in this movie, and
I
I'm
think he was
glad.
good, but I still think he is the same character he always plays.
Really?
Yeah, I just feel like he always plays that type of character, and it would be nice to see him do something a bit different. Like, yeah,
Comedy.
like I think he's good, but it's just the same sort of character, which he did
Yeah.
good in. I'm not saying anything bad, but it would be nice to see
No,
him do
but I was so devastated when he died in the remake versus
yeah.
the original. I
It
was,
reminded me of
you
Game
know,
of Thrones. You know, when
oh,
the old man that was with Daenerys and he's in like fighting in the like tunnel, he gets ambushed and he like fights all the people
mhm.
in that like town. It just reminded me of that scene.
Well, speaking of Game of Thrones, Jason Momoa actually, when they were filming this, the last season of Game of Thrones had come out, so it's been in the works for a very long time. It actually
Yeah.
was ready to be released in 2019, but due to the pandemic, he actually dedicated his last fight scene to Daenerys, who and also his son, who had just finished watching Game of Thrones as well.
Oh, no wonder it was so similar.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
thought, oh my gosh, even the fighting was so much better. It wasn't so like
Yeah. And
it
it
felt more realistic.
in the new one, again, another thing that just really explained things to me that I didn't understand is that in the like, I didn't understand the shields. I didn't understand that you couldn't, for such a futuristic world, that you can, there's so much technology and it's well beyond our advances, but, they created such shields that you couldn't use a gun or something, that it has to be like, it has to be knives.
There's
I
no
didn't understand
guns.
that. Stop it. So they can't,
Yeah,
something at a speed can't come through. I didn't know that with the shields in the first one. It was never explained. And then when I watched the second one, I'm like, oh my god, now I understand why they're all using like swords and stuff, because it explained it properly. Like that is how a book adaptation should be done.
absolutely. And I like the fact that there was no aliens in this movie. There was no other than
Other than the
humanity being the
worms.
monster.
Mm.
Only the worms, but there wasn't that much technology. Even his compass was an older compass. They didn't have like mobile phones, and like even when Paul is
They did have things like that. It was just different. So it had the perfect mix of technology and no technology, because they had the little gold comm receivers. So in the new one, like it was behind the ear. So when they click on it, they'd be like, okay, we're ready to go now, like when they were
yeah,
on the ship. So they
yeah,
had that perfect blend, but they also did it too well that they knew the weaknesses. So that's why they had to go back to some old things to work around the advanced technology. You know what I mean?
and absolutely. And also I really like the fact that they changed in the remake Doctor. When he was a human calculator, when he was doing calculations, his eyes would roll back
Yeah.
and go back to white. And then it cost them 1 million bits of whatever that currency is to come down to tell them this information that they have
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
a ruckus.
It was done really cool. Like,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the story so much more now that it was understandable.
Yes. And I'm gonna go to the score. How good is the original? Because it's done by Toto.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the whole score, it comes up on the beginning, score done by Toto.
I wasn't really paying attention.
Oh, no, it was so good. But I loved I've actually been playing it on repeat, this soundtrack. I just love, even at the very beginning when they're doing the throaty, I can't do it. I thought
Mm.
that was great. And when they bring up that first quote and just like that music, I'm like, anytime I have
Yes.
an achievement, I want to have that playing. Oh, I want that playing for
Yeah.
me whenever there's an achievement
Oh,
that I have.
I'll need to listen. I didn't actually listen to the soundtracks for this one. So yeah, I'm gonna take your word on that, and
If
I'll
you
start
like
listening to it as well.
instrumental,
Of
like
course.
I think you would genuinely love this soundtrack.
I'll have to have a listen.
I'm so glad, but I'm going to have to even watch these both again after I finish reading the book to understand the worlds a lot more as well. Because even though the book obviously was first, the movies both add a little bit of oomph to each storyline. And I'm actually going to watch Kids of Dune on Stan as well.
Do it.
That looks like so much fun. It took me the second time of watching it to realize that the Shadow Mapes is Linda Hunt.
The
And
Who?
the Shadow Mapes. So she was the helper when they
In
went
the first one.
in the first one.
Yeah. I recognized her instantly.
I was like, oh my gosh. And when she died, it was so,
I know. Or
oh.
even like what was weird was when she showed Lady Jessica the sword and then just randomly screamed, and I'm like, what is happening? But then like in the second one it just seemed so much more natural the way she screamed. I'm just like, I don't understand that at all. But just quickly on Lady Jessica, I definitely think like in the second one 100% Rebecca Ferguson out trumps her.
Oh,
She knew how to act. The original, she had this like classic, almost like 50s style, 60s style of acting and beauty with her, because even when like her husband died, viewers, listeners aren't going to see, but she would be like, ah, like, and she would like, her arms went around so like dramatically around her face. And I'm like, I feel like I'm watching a 60s film, but it's like 1984.
I know.
She was just so out of place. I think Rebecca Ferguson, and she brought so much more emotion to that character. She, like in the original, she just seemed like this emotionless, like queen, even though she wasn't.
No, but also I have to say the costumes in the remake were so beautiful.
They were
And
done
everything,
perfectly.
it was so beautiful. But the women who were wearing the suits were saying that they were really annoyed because the costumes didn't have any, you had to take the full thing off to go to the bathroom, whereas the men,
Oh,
they didn't have to take it all off to go to the bathroom, and that it was set in
it's like a jumpsuit for women.
yeah, so they had to take it all off to go to the bathroom. But what an amazing story to think that, water is so precious that they have to wear these suits to capture to that they're not even going to lose, they'll lose more than a thimble of water a
Yeah,
day.
interesting. I didn't understand. I always just assumed it was like an oxygen tube that
Mhm,
went to the nose
mhm.
until they, again, the remake did this so perfectly, explained it that it's a water source that goes back through the nostril. I didn't realize that was the water source. I thought it was oxygen. And then I didn't even click later, duh, they didn't need oxygen anywhere else in that, like when they weren't in that tube. So I didn't even think, but it just shows you that again how much the remake explained everything so well.
I'm a bit annoyed that they didn't show too much of when the Duke comes to Arrakis for the first time, and because the Harkonnens were there for such a long time, that they were all just in it for the money. They wanted it all just to so they could be rich and richer than ever. That when they had dinner, they would walk through some water, and then they would dry their feet on a towel, and then at the end they would throw the towels outside, and that whoever was around could grab the ringings of that to drink.
Oh,
Sorry, when the Duke comes in, he's like, I want this finished. I don't want this ritual anymore.
yeah.
And so that's when,
So this is in the book.
yes, yeah, and that's when Linda Hunt's character gets the poos, because she actually goes and sells that water to other people, and that,
She
you
loses
know
money.
she loses money, and she got the shits about that. And I think that is such an important part of the story, to show that he is all about mankind. He's all about, yes, he wants the spice, but humans and everything is more important.
Yeah, like even the scene with the trees in the new one when he's like,
Yes,
oh, this will drink like X amount of water a day, and
20
like
men.
straight away, Paul's like, why don't we just remove them? And it's almost like a bittersweet. It's like you want them there, like they've survived through so much, and they're a beautiful piece of nature that you get to keep in the desert. But then it's so sad when you see them up in flames later. But it's also, I understand why not preserve that water. when you could just get rid of them. It's
Mm-hmm.
so conflicting, but it was just having that short little scene made you think so much, especially when
Mm-hmm.
they went up in flames. It's just like, oh my God, I'm actually sad that they're not there anymore.
I don't know whether or not Sting. I know that he's meant to come in. His character's meant to come into the second movie, but I feel like Dave Bautista was a little bit in this movie.
He needed to be like more raw almost. Because the other guy
Yes.
was almost like he was like I pictured him like an angry rhino, like
Yeah.
a bull almost, if you want to say, like just
Mm-hmm.
charge first, ask questions later. That's what the
Mm-hmm.
original character,
Mm-hmm.
how he was portrayed to me,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave Bautista was missing that like angry energy.
I mean, he
Yeah,
looks angry, but
yeah,
he wasn't. I don't know. He was missing something in this movie.
yeah. Like there was no animalistic
No.
like vibe about them.
Mm-hmm. I totally like. I recommend everybody to see this movie, and if you can, see it on the big screen.
Yeah, I wish I did. I truly, after watching it now, I'm like, this would have been so much better in the cinemas.
Told you so.
I couldn't see it at the cinema. It's
I
not
know.
my fault. There's stupid COVID still. I was too
I
young.
know, I know. But yeah, I going back to like Zendaya's character, I thought she did amazing in this movie. I thought, she was even though she wasn't in it very much, she was such a standout. Whereas in the 1984 version, I just felt like she was, eh.
Yeah, there was one thing that I did like in the 1984 one when she handed him the blade, she told him the fighting style. In this one, it was more his vision. But his vision was so confusing because throughout it, he would see himself get stabbed. You didn't really see the fight until the fight was there. So I think I probably would have preferred her to hand it to him because it also builds like a connection between you and the other character. You know, if you're going to hand someone a blade and be like, oh, watch out for his right side, if you survived, you'd forever feel a bit more connected or like you owed that person something. So
Mhm,
you would be with them a bit more, and you can
mhm.
see that in that just from one line. I think it just strengthened the character a little bit more in the original. That's just an
And
opinion that I
also,
had.
you could tell that the Duke and Lady Jessica were in love in the
In the remake,
remake,
yeah.
whereas the others, and you don't really find out unless you read the book that they're not married at all.
No, you did because that was
And
a point that I had as well. Specifically in the remake, when Oscar Isaac goes to bed, he actually tells Jessica, he says, "I should have married you." Whereas in the other one, it's moments before he gets knocked out, and he's
mm,
just walking the halls, and he said, "Oh, my beloved." Like concubine, I should have married you. It's like, don't
yeah,
think that. You should be telling her that,
no,
you
but he
know?
can't. But then he can't marry her, and the reason why he didn't marry her is because then he's single or not married, so then that way all the other countries or worlds still see him as available, and that then is makes it so that way other countries or worlds have the possibility of building a relationship with that family.
Yeah, but I mean, in if you're gonna view it like that, as soon as you have a son,
Yeah,
what's the point? You should have married her because your
he
son
can't.
is then the point to build that relationship. You can marry him. Exactly what he said in the remake. He's like, the emperor has nothing but daughters. Why don't I go and marry one of them?
Because she was meant to have women, but she actually somehow chose to
Yes,
have a son.
yes.
And I'm so excited about the future of these movies.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't as keen as you. I didn't know the story. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll watch Dune. But now I'm like, I really liked it. Yeah.
And it's good going into it. I mean, like I said, I went with my brother, and then I was like, no, I have to go on my own. And my brother was like, I have no idea what that movie was about. I said, well, and especially for me, watching a very plot heavy movie, even
Yep.
even though it was so beautiful, my eyes were locked the entire time, and I was just taking it all in. Anal about being in a movie and not having people talk to me and like get off your phone. It's 2 hours. Get off your phone.
Yeah.
And other movies, I'm like, turn your phone off. I turn around and I'm like, shut up. This one, I did not even care. I was just like focused on the movie, and it didn't feel like it was an almost 3 hour movie.
Yeah, that's exactly what my twin said. He was telling me that, you know, he had to go to the bathroom early on in the film, but he held it, and he said he didn't even realize, like it didn't register to him in his body that he had to go because the film was just that engaging. Yeah.
And like I said a few episodes ago, best quote is, if I could ever film, I would, 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So, how many movie reels do you give this one?
I'm going to give the remake for sure a 4.5.
Oh,
That
wow.
was such a good film. It was done so well as a viewer. You enjoyed it. You didn't feel like you were being spoon-fed information. You felt like you were in the story. You felt the tension that they were feeling at the same time they felt it. It wasn't until, it's because I watched the original, I didn't realize just how much I missed until I watched this one, and it just made me realize this was done beautifully. It was shot beautifully. You know, the scenery, like the scenes were so beautiful. It was just, I just can't find a fault to this one. It was done really well. For the first one, I would probably give it probably a 2.5.
Wow.
Or a 3. Like, it was real. I don't think I'd go out of my way to watch the original again now that they're new. I'd rather sit through 2 films in comparison to that one film. And as I said, I summed it up. I had so many questions after that first one. Actually, I'll change it. I'll go with 3. It was interesting. It really introduced me into the story. I liked it. But the second one just made my interest blow so much more out.
Yeah, so 1984, I'm probably going to give it a 3.5. I have seen it a few times. I didn't hate it, but it's not the best film of the world. And I have watched it a few times. Like I said, I think you should watch this one before you go into the original.
I agree.
Because before you go to the remake, because you do need to have some sort of setup. If you go in completely knowing nothing, you will get a little bit confused.
And that's what happened to me with the first one. I just got so lost, but it helped with the second one for sure.
And the second one, I'm giving a 4.5.
Yeah.
I think it was just absolutely beautiful. Even like, I loved the Thopters. The Thopters were so cool. The helicopter things.
Oh yeah, like the dragonflies.
Yep.
They were cool. I've never seen it. It's like, even when they this is when both me and my partner looked at each other and we were like, we should have seen this at the cinemas. When the wings came out, it was just so silent, and even when it dropped and the sound, like the way they just had the sound sort of come off, and it felt like you were falling with them, and all sound was gone out of your like ears. It just looked so good.
Absolutely. Like with this scene where you saw the worm for the first time, and you saw it like the ground, like
the teeth come through the ground. It reminded me of like a Sarlacc pit in Star Wars.
I cannot fault this movie. All right.
I agree.
So, we've probably missed so much in this movie.
Okay. I think there's so much to talk about, but we could make to do it. Second one.
Oh no.
We've got to review the second film, which we do now. Just talk about the first one to the second one.
Done. Okay. Question: what do you think the 1984 got on Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, so my thought process, the original, I feel like it's a cult classic, but after seeing the first one and just the reviews of the first one, I know that people are the same as us. They can't fault this film. I feel like it would drop the original one's scores because people can see it's been done better. I'm gonna go 63%.
Wrong. Lower.
Lower?
Yeah.
Like significantly lower?
Yeah.
No, the pressure this year. It's so intense.
I know.
Okay.
And if you can also guess the audience score, you get double points.
37.
No, 44.
I was going to go 43.
Ah! So
Um,
Rotten Tomatoes got 44. What do you think the audience score got, which is better than the tomato score?
I feel like the audience score might be around like the 70% mark.
Is that your final answer? You're going to lock in 70%?
71.
That was a hiccup. No, you got 65.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're the cult classic fans that like hang on to the original. Okay. Okay, this one I think did really well, even judging by the both of us in our reviews that we can't fault it yet. We gave it 4.5. It should have been a 5.
No movie, not. I'm going to
No
say.
movie is 5. I agree. Yeah, I agree. Do I want to say it's in the 90s or do I want to say it's in the 80s? It's hard. All right, I'm just going to go.
Not to like look at you because I'm like.
I'm going to go 95%.
Lower, significantly.
Oh, really? 84%.
You were so close. It got 83%.
I was thinking 83. I always land on a 3, and I'm like, no, not everything lands on a 3. So I always try to go around that. Oh, I should have gone with that. I could have won a point.
I'm disappointed that it got 83%. However, thinking of that, I'm like, there's people that have gone in not knowing a single thing, being
Anything,
completely
exactly.
confused.
Yeah.
So, and I think people were expecting
A full film. I don't think they were
not
thinking
only a full film, but it to give you a conclusion. And I don't know, I just feel because there's so much involved in these series that you can't get it all in one.
Exactly.
What do you think the audience score got?
I feel the audience score must be higher. Like I feel like everyone else must think this one's good. So maybe like
I will say it is higher.
92. Is it 93? Oh, 90.
No, it's 90.
Oh, yeah, I feel like give it some time, a bit more, like let it be out a bit longer. I reckon these scores will change, and I feel like they'll go up. And especially if people go and watch the original and then compare to this, they'll realize the significant difference between the two.
And I highly recommend listening to the book. I know that I kept saying, read the book, but the way that it's told is so engaging, and each beginning and end of the chapter has like a Bene Gesserit. That's who they are, Bene Gesserit. I knew I'd get there. Setting up the next scene. And so I really like that. And I like the fact that they narrate, but then when there's a scene coming on where it needs to be done, then they have it like an audio drama.
Yeah, like there's just because you mentioned in the episode how it's different to a normal audiobook. So I currently don't have my Audible account right now. I will wait for the next deal. But I did get the free audiobook of the Sandman series, the Neil Gaiman Sandman series that's going to come out next year. This year. So I got confused because I just downloaded it. I never looked at it, and I got confused because obviously my version of Timothy Chalamet is Michael Sheen to me. He's my Hollywood heartthrob. Well, I mean, he's the Welsh heartthrob for me. And then I kept seeing that he was going to play Lucifer, and I'm like, no, like Brienne of Tarth, like from Game of Thrones, is playing Lucifer. I've forgotten Gwendolyn something. She's playing it, and I'm like, I'm so confused. The actual audiobook of The Sandman has actors who are playing different, and wait for it, I'll find the actors for you. Like they actually got a ton of actors to read the book, and I'm like, holy crap, this has just blown audiobooks way out. Like it's like
I love audio dramas.
Yeah, I didn't know this was such a thing.
One of the ones on Audible is called 6 Degrees of Assassination, and it's an audio drama, and it's got Freema argument. And it's also got I can't think of his name, but he plays Sherlock's nemesis.
The guy from The Hobbit. Oh no, the nemesis. I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
He's in Fleabag as well. He played the priest in Fleabag. Oh, yes, I love him.
I'm just trying to find, because when I saw the cast who was going to be in this book, I was just like, what? I didn't know that was such a thing.
I know. I can't wait to listen to it. I'm excited now.
Yeah, I'd honestly, because I was like, he ain't Lucifer. Like, I knew it was Gwendolyn who was going to be.
Oh, I know nothing about Sandman.
Okay, so Neil Gaiman's going to. It's part of the DC comic publications. So Neil Gaiman's narrating, as he usually does for his own content. James McAvoy will be Morpheus. Michael Sheen is Lucifer. I don't know this person, but Karen Bartke is Ethel. I've seen this lady's face before, but I don't know. But Kat Dennings, she's Death. And then you've got Matthew Horn. I've seen that guy before. I can't tell you what he's in, but you'll know his face when you see him. He's playing in it. Patterson Joseph. Also Miriam Margolyes. So that's Professor Sprout from Harry Potter.
Yep.
Andy Serkis.
Oh my gosh. I
Andy
follow
Serkis
her
is
on
in it.
Instagram. On TikTok. She is the funniest thing in the whole entire world. I'll have to put it up on our socials.
But
she comes up and she's like, this one's to all my fans out there. Have a wonderful day. And she
oh my
farts
god,
and
that's
walks.
hilarious.
It's the funniest thing in the whole entire world. Yeah.
But yeah, even Andy Serkis is a voice on that audiobook, so I'm keen to listen to that. But anyway, we should probably move into our
Nerdazon's Nerdy Notables.
Okay, continue. I cut you off halfway through, but we need to get to put that in.
Because I've been on break and had a lot of time just hanging out because most people are either not willing to come out or have family get-togethers. I've also been watching a lot of movies, and I watched Guns Akimbo.
That's on my to-watch list. That's with Daniel Radcliffe when the things get nailed to his head.
I don't know how I feel about that movie. It's a lot gorier.
It's I get like a Black Mirror vibe from that when I saw the trailer to that.
No.
Okay.
But it does have Samara Weaving in it.
Oh, okay.
She gives off a very Harley Quinn vibe.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's very Margot Robbie feeling. Yeah. Also, it was pretty funny that Rhys Darby's in this movie.
Yeah. I like him.
And he is just really, really funny. But it's not at all what I expected.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll have to have a look. I do like Daniel Radcliffe's indie films. Like, he does some really good films.
He does.
I've also been watching quite a bit, actually, with my spare time because I become a vampire in summer. I hate the heat and I hate the sun. And as soon as it's out, I shut my blinds and I just watch nothing but TV. But I binged series 1 of The Haunting of Hill House.
Is that any good?
I didn't mind it, actually. It was a bit slow at some points, but the ending was worth it. I liked it, but then there's a series 2 called The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I will watch.
I think that's one that I watched.
I liked series 1. It was really good. Yeah, it was a bit slow. One episode just blew my mind in the middle of it. If you've seen the series, you'll know which one it is. But it just...
Is it scary?
You might find it scary. I think you might be okay with it. So, like, whenever you see a horror series, you know it's never going to be to the extent of a movie, like a horror movie. So, this one, as it's a series, it does rely on, like, a bit more jump scares because you can't do too much more in it otherwise. But I liked it. After the really good episode in the middle, it was a bit slow, but then the end was just like I thought it was really good. So I'm keen to watch the next series on that one. And I also started, I have like so many things I just shoved in my favorites throughout the year and I never watched. So I'm planning to watch. I started Midnight Mass. That was one that started last year. That one didn't go in the direction I thought based off the trailer. Yeah, so, like, I don't know how I feel about it. It's slow. It's a bit hard for me to finish. I will finish it, but, yeah, that one's a bit interesting. I had a really different view based on the trailer, what I thought of that. And then I'm going to start, hopefully, Chapel Thwaite is another, like, horror one.
I want to start that as well.
Yeah, it's in my, like, to watch list. So now that, we've gotten on top of some of our episodes this year, I can finally start watching that before I start studying again. So I'm really trying to just binge as much as I can before I go
Wheel of
back
Time,
to work.
I highly recommend as well.
Yeah, that's also in my to-watch list. Yeah, so...
And also, I don't know how I haven't watched the Harry Potter thing on HBO yet.
I haven't either, but it doesn't
I'm kind of
really
scared.
interest me.
I don't know if it's a movie or if
It's not. It's just an interview of them coming back. That's like, that doesn't interest me, because to me it's like, I like the movie. Why do I need to watch the actors come back and talk about 20 years ago I started this, like that? No, I don't need to see that. So,
guess what I'm doing next week that I'm so excited about?
what?
I'm gonna go see The Wedding Singer.
Oh, nice. On like
Yep.
as a play? Nice.
As a play, yep.
I
And then
love
I was
those.
looking for my outfit, and my friend goes, "Well, remember, we are going to a wedding." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we're dressing
Yeah,
up.
dress up. Do
Yep.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that. Next fortnight's your choice.
Yes, so since it'll be close to, Valentine's Day, and I'm trying to also pick things out of the box, but one of my favorite sort of romance films, I know I never used to admit I had favorite romance films, but I love Pride and Prejudice.
Mhm.
So I've chosen that. We're going to do the mini
I've never seen it.
series. Oh, see, I was never a reader, as you know. I didn't even read the school books, so I didn't really know much about Jane Austen stuff. And like, I remember watching Keira Knightley's one first. I think it's 2005, and then I have never seen the 1995 version, because there's always a debate over who's your Mr. Darcy. Is it Colin Firth, or is it like, I forget his name, the new guy. Anyway, so I thought, well, you know what? That's another film that will force me to watch the mini series. Let's do Pride and Prejudice, but I like it, and we'll get into it when we start that.
And I'm going completely out of the box as well. My February choice is nowhere near a romance film at all.
I know.
I'm doing Conan the Barbarian because
Which I'm so excited for.
I've never seen a serious Arnie movie. I know I broke your heart earlier by saying I've never seen Predator. And I've never seen
that.
I know. So I'm really excited to do that and the Jason Momoa version of Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to watch. I haven't seen either of them. So next month is gonna be interesting.
It sure is. So if you do want to follow us on Instagram or Facebook under Nerdazons, you can send us an email at nerdazons@outlook.com. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We also have merch done by the amazing Craftcaster. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram, but you can find our merch on Teespring.
Until then, stay nerdy.